Adil and Hanif.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
All right, we got it going, alhamdulillah. We're going to start in a minute, right? Just wait, give us a sec.
No.
Just wait, give us a sec.
No.
All right, brothers, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So the goal of tonight is we are talking about a very, very important subject. And the first thing we're going to make you aware tonight is that this is a subject when you leave here tonight and you're going to have to act on it. Many times you go to listen, you go listen, learn something, and you go home and you say, oh, that was a good lecture, that was a good lesson. But what we're going to teach you tonight, when you leave here, you must act on what you're going to learn tonight. And you'll see why that is so important, inshallah. So I have my dearest brothers, beloved Adil Muhammad from Melbourne, and his brother Hanif Muhammad. And brother Hanif is going on Hajj with us as well, inshallah. Adil has been with us as a service partner at National Zakah Foundation for many, many years. And we've known each other for a long, long time. And he's established this organization called Wasiyah. And he'll talk through all of that, the importance, and he'll go through that. After they finish the explanation of how to develop, how to do your world through them, etc., and all of that, and we'll go through why it's important as well. I'll come back on at the end, inshallah, and I'll talk to you about, they'll talk about executors, they'll talk about why you need to do your will and stuff. And I will just recap for you some matters, like people tell you, the lawyer will tell you, you need an executor. I will explain to you how to choose an executor. From personal experience, who should be your executor? Not legally, I'm talking from personal experience and advice about what you should consider about who should be your executor. Then also I'll talk to you about what are the things you can and should put in your will, the wasiyah itself, the 1/3. Like they have the 1/3, then they say you can put to charity, you can do all of those sorts of things. We'll talk about who can inherit from you and why it's important for you to understand and know that. We'll talk about the details of the stuff you can put in your will. As an example, where would you like to be buried? Who would you like for your janazah prayer to be led? Right? All of those smaller things that people don't actually think about that goes in their will. And then I'll touch on something which is also normally not talked about, and that is what we call power of attorney and enduring guardianship. These are documents that I will talk to you from personal experience that I had to use over the last few weeks. And if I didn't have these documents, there was nothing I can do with my dad's will, with the things that go together. So I'm going to give you practical examples and experience of what can happen if you didn't have it, and what can happen if you had it, but it's not done properly. All right. So that's the goal of tonight, inshallah, and we'll take some questions. And as the brother said, there's some refreshments as well, so that should keep you all night, inshallah. All right. Hanif, Adil, the floor is yours.
Jazakallah khairan. Brother Ismail, before you sit down, how long do I have?
How tall are you?
No. How long do I have to talk?
Well, for your other one is cancelled, right?
Yes.
All right, so talk for whatever is practical.
All right, okay.
Guys,
all right.
This night.
Sounds good. All right. Bismillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you to Brother Ismail Al-Baraqa and the National Zakat Foundation for this opportunity to talk to everybody here, inshallah, about this important subject about wills. Often a subject that we don't like to engage with because it means that we're talking about our end. But of course, it's something that we as Muslims understand to be an inevitability, as the only certainty in life is that we're going to die. So we need to be prepared for that, inshallah. And as Muslims, especially in this country, which doesn't recognize Islamic laws as a matter of course, it's even more important. And we'll talk through that. Inshallah, I'm going to just share my screen and put a presentation on. If the host can allow me to share the screen, please, that'll be great. Has that been enabled?
Is it enabled?
It's still coming up as disabled on my side.
Which left laptop that needs to be done on. Where's the host? Where's the host? Where's the other laptop?
He's got it. This comes up. So for charger?
No.
Okay. I think it's working now. Can everyone see the screen?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Alhamdulillah. All right, so tonight, inshallah, we're going to go through a very quick presentation about the 5 reasons to write your will before you sleep tonight. And then I'll take you through exactly how you can use it, do that for yourself using the Wasiya system. Try to make it as simple as possible for everybody, inshallah. And then, of course, really open to taking any questions that people have. And generally, people do have a lot of questions. So 5 reasons to write your will before you sleep tonight. And Brother Ismail just mentioned earlier that you have to take action after you go through this presentation. So inshallah, hopefully, some of these reasons will motivate you to do that. So the first reason and the most important reason to do this, and I'm assuming a lot of you that are in the audience and watching tonight are also planning on going for Hajj. So the reason why you would do this and the reason why you're going for Hajj actually are all the same, one and the same. And that is first and foremost that we are people who need to submit to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we go for Hajj because, of course, it is one of the pillars of Islam, and our Prophet ﷺ commanded us and Allah commanded us to do so. When it comes to end of life and what we do about that as well, there are commandments and requirements Islamically that we need to meet. So for the same reasons why some of you are planning to go for Hajj this time is the same reason why you should do this, because you want to submit to the will of Allah. And what are we talking about? Like, everybody thinks about inheritance when it comes to wills, and that is, of course, a very important part of it. And in the Quran, Allah details out very specifically who is entitled to what after someone passes away. It's in Surah Nisa, ayahs number 11 and 12. I encourage everyone to go and read it, inshallah, in their own time. Very detailed. And if we look at other acts of worship, whether it be like salah and fasting, etc., we learn the majority of the fiqh of it and how to go about doing it from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But when it comes to this issue of inheritance, it's something that Allah has actually specified in the Quran. So we should understand that it is a very important matter. Especially, I hope it's not afflicted any of our families, but I'm sure people are aware of families that have been torn apart because for no other reason that they refuse to submit to the will of Allah. Because if Allah has made it very clear for us how inheritance happens after we pass away, if we submit to that, there's no issues. It's when people try to depart from that and don't accept the will of Allah that it becomes a big issue. And specifically when it comes to inheritance as well, the other important thing to keep in mind, and again, I encourage everyone to go and read in their own time. Immediately after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually lays out the rules in terms of who's entitled to what in Surah Nisa, like I mentioned, ayahs number 11 and 12, immediately after that, the ayahs after that, Allah actually says, these are my laws, and whoever obeys them will enter Jannah, and whoever disobeys them will enter Jahannam. It's like bang, it hits you right in the middle of the head, in the sense that these are my laws. If you obey them, you'll enter Jannah. And imagine the distribution of our estate is sort of one of the last things that happens to us or about us whilst we're on this earth. And we can, do as much as we can do to be able to stand before Allah and say, Allah, I submitted to your will. If you were to write a will for yourself, which actually specifies distribution, as Allah has mentioned. But of course, with this issue of submission, actually also, it applies to other end-of-life matters, as you'll see as we go through the will, go through the presentation, because there's other aspects to end-of-life that we also need to try our best to comply with the Islamic requirements as well. So I'll cover them as we go through the presentation. And just a very quick side note as well, because this is a misconception that I've seen in our community, is that women need to write their own wills just as men need to write their own wills. Because I've had numerous people come up to me and say, oh, but my husband has a will, or my wife doesn't really need a will because I have a will. Because everybody assumes that, you know, the husband is the controller of the assets and etc. And I mean, everyone's life circumstances are different, but to take a general case of, you know, even perhaps the jewelry that's in the cupboard, sometimes the female in the family, in the family unit, may actually own more than the husband. So it's something to keep in mind. And Islamically, we're treated as individuals, and so too under the legal system in Australia. So just wanted to point out very clearly that it's very important that both men and women write their wills, inshallah. The second reason that we say it's important for somebody to write their will is to protect their family. To protect their family. And what do we mean by this? We mean by this, you need to consider what your circumstances are if you were to pass away without a will. Because if you were to pass away without a will, you die in what's known as a state of intestacy. And as a result, you're at the mercy of the legal system or the legislation that exists in the jurisdiction, in the state that you live in. Which means, of course, the distribution of your estate is not going to be treated as Allah has said in the Quran. But when we talk about protecting your family, one of the core functions of a will document is to nominate somebody as an executor. The executor is the person who you are nominating to administer all of your affairs after you pass away. So this is the person who has the authority to talk to a bank. This is the person who has an authority to talk to the real estate agent. All of those type of issues that need to be dealt with, your executor deals with it. Now, if you die without a will, you haven't nominated an executor. You haven't left that authority to anyone. And it's a much bigger hassle for your family to then have to establish or find somebody who's given that authority. And it's a more involved process with the court, which is an absolutely unnecessary hassle for everybody, which you can avoid if you were to write yourself a will document. Thirdly, is to fulfill your obligations. So when we talk about fulfilling your obligations, and you'll see the picture there, it has, you know, someone handcuffed to a few dollar bills. And that's really suggesting that, you know, people have debts, you know, debts that they owe to others, etc., which is very important to try and settle before you pass away. The reason being that all of these affairs otherwise get settled on the day of judgment, before our judgment commences. Because the ultimate justice of Islam is that everybody has their rights fulfilled as well. So very important to make sure in your will document is your opportunity to actually mention that. In addition to the obligations that you may owe to the insan, to the creation, there are also obligations that we owe to the Creator, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are some of those obligations? For example, if you've got unpaid zakat, this is something that should be settled from your estate before any distribution happens to your beneficiaries. If you've not performed a Hajj, which you had the means to perform, then this is a debt that you owe to Allah. And this is something that should be settled from your estate before any distribution occurs. If you have fasts that you've not completed, this is a debt that you owe to Allah, and this should be settled. So your will document is your ability to remind your family to fulfill those obligations on your behalf, inshallah, from your estate, from the money that you leave behind first and foremost. And if you don't, then they do it on your behalf before anybody starts taking their inheritance, because these are things that you owe to either the creation or the creator. So very important, your will document gives you that ability as well, inshallah. Fourthly, for those of us who have children who are minors, where both parents are not alive, you need to think about who actually looks after the children if both parents are not alive. And your will document is your opportunity to nominate people to act as the guardian of your children. And this is important to keep in mind, because if you are not to, then they're at the mercy of the authorities. They're at the mercy of different people putting their hand up, potentially wanting to look after your kids, etc. And you lose control of, having people who share your values, who will do the best by your children according to how you may have wanted to do so. So for those of us with children who are minors, very important. Your will document is that opportunity, inshallah. And lastly, the fifth reason is to avoid what we call procrastination. Now, this is a very real phenomenon. We started Wasiya maybe 12 years ago. I've lost count, but it seems to be more than 10 years anyway. And I can guarantee you that there were people who spoke to me when we first started who said, yes, brother, this is really important. I need to do it. And I can guarantee you that they haven't done it yet. Because this is just one of those topics that we do like to procrastinate about. So really important. I've got there the picture of the virus. Everybody knows what I'm referring to, COVID, where there may have been a big rush of people wanting to write their wills when they realize that. But don't be the person that someone calls me about saying, brother, we really need to write a will for so-and-so, and you're in a coma in the hospital, which is something that happens all the time. And it's because they neglected to do this when they were actually of sound mind. At that stage, when you're in that sort of stage, or family members in that sort of stage, it's actually too late to write a will document, because one of the requirements for a will to be valid is that you are of sound mind when you are writing that. So really important, inshallah. Highly encourage everybody to not procrastinate on this issue. Those of us who are going on Hajj, I think Hajj is one of those times where people really think about this, because inshallah, mashallah, they look to get all of their affairs in order before they leave. So just use that energy that comes from that, inshallah, to get it done, get it over and done with. I'm going to demonstrate to you our system just very shortly now. And we've designed it so that if you really wanted to do it, the maximum amount of time you need, the minimum amount of time you need to invest is no more than 10, 15 minutes. But of course, some people like to think a lot more, etc. And if you want to, you can do that too. But try to make it as simple as possible so that procrastination is not a real issue for us. So let me just take you to our website quickly, just to show you. So this is the website here, wasiya.com. And basically what you do, like to get it through us, is click on this start your will, and then it will take you to a page like this, which I'm gonna log in through now, inshallah. Once you create your account, you basically just log in. I will logging in now just to demonstrate, I hope. All right, I'm logged in, and what people do then is that they purchase their will, and then you click on this button called Start Preparing, right? Essentially, and I'm going to take you through the various sections on the questionnaire, explain some of the commonly asked questions as well as I go through this. So the first section is very simple. It's just your name and your address. Like, whose will is this, right? The main thing to point out here is that you can't write a will jointly with your spouse for many reasons, but predominantly because both Islamically and under Australian law, people are treated as individuals, and accordingly, they need to have their own individual will document. Joint wills are not something that's recognized. Then we go through the funeral and the burial. And here again, we ask people to nominate, you to nominate people that you'd like to act as your funeral and burial coordinator after you pass away. I'm conscious that Brother Ismail mentioned he'll be giving some really practical advice around this. So I'll leave it to him, inshallah. The only thing, just wanted to mention two things that people ask a lot is, should you be nominating your mosque or your funeral and burial service to do that? And the answer is no, you don't need to. Nominate an individual who is like the final decision maker, and of course they will engage with the mosque, or they'll engage with the funeral and burial service to actually run your will, but they're essentially the final final decision maker, inshallah. Then the executor and the guardian. So I've explained what who the executor is. The executor is the person that you've nominated to administer your affairs after you pass away. This person does not need to have a legal or financial expertise or background. Again, I'll leave it to Brother Ismail to give you the practical tips on who's suitable to be an executor. But the reason I'm just pointing out they don't need to be a lawyer, they don't need to be an accountant or something, is because if whoever you nominate as your executor needs that type of expertise, they can engage them and just ask them the questions that they need to, or get the advice that they need to. But you're nominating someone else to be the final decision maker. People often ask as well, can they nominate someone from overseas to act as the executor? The answer to that question is that there's nothing stopping you from doing so. There's nothing illegal about doing so. You only really need to think about the practicalities of them being able to act on your affairs in Australia if they're based overseas. If they can come here easily and things like that, maybe it's easier. But yeah, that's the only thing just to keep in mind there. And with the guardian as well, on the questionnaire, if you don't have young children, just check this box and it goes away. If you've got minors and you want to nominate guardians, the only thing I want to point out here is do not nominate the other parent of the child as the guardian, because they have an automatic right if they're alive. This section only really applies if both parents are not alive, all things being equal. All right. After this, we have a section called My Wishes. Now, this is not a compulsory section. If you don't want to include it, just check the box and it's gone. If you want to write wishes, then you can. What we say to people is, please write wishes that don't have anything to do with the distribution of your assets. The reason being is that the distribution of your assets, as you'll see in a second, is treated one of two ways. It's either from your 1/3, or it is as Allah said in the Quran. So we deal with that in the will document as we go ahead, inshallah. Yes, I think that's the main thing. But the type of wishes you want to mention Could be anything you want. Like if you want your children to continue to memorize the Quran, you can leave that advice for them there. If you want them to go and visit particular family members, you can write it there. Anything really not asset distribution related, please write as many wishes as you want, inshallah, and we make sure that we will draft it into your will document for you. Then we have this section called charitable contributions and testamentary transfers. Again, this section is not compulsory, so if you don't want it, just click the box. But if you want to leave something, then this is where you do it. Now, fundamentally, the first thing to mention is that the maximum we are allowed to leave in this section is 1/3 of our total estate. So 33.33%, because this is what Allah has allowed us to leave. We can't leave any more. The second thing to mention here is that you can't leave anything to anyone that is a specified beneficiary of yours Islamically. The easiest way to think about that is that essentially you can't leave, in most cases, to your parents, to your children, to your spouse, to your immediate family, because they more than likely will have a share given to them by Allah in the Quran, and that's what you need to honor. So who do you leave to then from your 1/3? And when we talk about a testamentary transfer, it's to anyone who's not a known beneficiary. So it could be a neighbor, it could be a non-Muslim family member, because non-Muslims don't have an automatic right of inheritance Islamically. It could be a friend, it could be it could be a very distant relative, potentially, if you want to.
Grandchildren.
Right? And otherwise, it could be, like we said, charitable contributions. So it could be sadaqah as well. If you want to leave anything to mosques, to organizations like the National Zakat Foundation, etc., then you can leave here, inshallah. You'll see in the guidance there's some guidance from the Prophet ﷺ in terms of how much somebody should leave. And the encouragement is to actually give less than more in this section, so that you don't leave your family begging after you pass away. But the lesson there is that you give your sadaqah and your zakat, you pay it whilst you're alive. Inshallah, give as much as you can, inshallah, whilst you're alive. And then after that, it's very simple. All your answers that you wrote will be there. You just review that, you submit it. We get the information, then we prepare your will document for you, and we send it to you along with signing instructions. So there's two key pieces of information that you would have seen that we don't ask people to specify. Number one is who are your beneficiaries, and number two is what are your assets. The reason for this is because this changes throughout the course of your life. So if, for example, you said in your will that you want to leave the $1,000 that's in your bank account to your father, right? When time comes to execute your will, say you have $2,000, then the question is, who gets the other $1,000? First thing. Say, for example, your father passed away at the time your will was being executed, right? Then who receives any of the money? Because basically who your beneficiaries are is constantly changing. What your assets are constantly changing as well. And because of that, we actually don't ask you to nominate it. We write our wills flexibly so that it's the job of the executor to actually determine who your beneficiaries are and what your assets are at the point of time of death, and then to do the distribution accordingly, inshallah. Couple of things I just wanted to demonstrate as well on our system very quickly is, let's go back to the dashboard. If you were to get a will and you want to change any information, there's this functionality here to update your will, you just have to click this access renewal button, and that'll activate that one. There's a $10 a year fee to maintain access. That cover our cost in terms of being able to keep it live for you, but there's no charge. There's no charge each time a new will document is prepared for you. So it's a little more cost-effective way. And the last thing is, let me just show everybody quickly the will document as an example, because people like to see this. We've got, all right, so the first section is some advice to your family. Then we go through your funeral and your burial, specify what the rules are that apply from a Quran and Sunnah perspective as it relates. Then we go through the nomination of your executor and your guardian. Here we write through your wishes. So any of those wishes that you have that you want dealt with, write it there. Then we have a section where we cover your debts and expenses. Make sure that all of that is dealt with before any distribution of your estate. Then any of the sadaqah or any of the sort of transfers to non-beneficiaries from your 1/3, if you want to leave. You can see this person has only left 2%, even though they're allowed to leave up to 33%. That's totally fine. You can do that. And then the last section here is actually the Islamic distribution of the estate. So the one thing I wanted to point out here is that we don't ask people to, or we don't write our wills in a way where we say, distribute my estate according to Islamic law, full stop. I've heard a lot of people, especially going for Hajj, I've heard a lot of people realize they need to do a will at the airport, and then they go to the post office and they purchase something, and then they very quickly write something, please distribute my estate according to Islamic law, full stop, and then they leave it. What's the problem with that? The problem with that is that the Australian system doesn't recognize the Sharia. It doesn't recognize Islamic law. So if that will ever needed to be handed on by a judge, the first question they'll ask is, what is Islamic law? It's not recognized here in Australia. So the way we actually write our will document is to take the Islamic rules and write them specifically in the will document. So that it's depending on the circumstance that applies, then you can work out what the distribution needs to be. So that it's much easier to be applied, inshallah, and it's understandable by the legal system here in Australia as well. And of course, in this section, we write all of the other rules as it relates to distribution, things like no non-Muslims should inherit, etc., because those are the Islamic rules when it relates to asset distribution. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm very happy to take any questions that people may have.
The price. How much?
Oh, the price. Yeah, so the cost of doing a will generally is $249, but there's a special code. It's called NZF with the number 2 at the end. If people use that, they'll get 10% off, so it's about $25 off, and then we donate $25 to the National Zakat Foundation as well through that. So highly encourage everybody to utilize the code NZF2 with the number 2 at the end. If we've got people's details, we can email it through as well after the presentation.
Or we can just put on the Facebook page the website title link and the prices there.
Yeah.
And the code that you need to use to get the discount.
Yeah, NZF2. Yeah, NZF with the number 2.
There are some questions coming as well.
All right.
Please ask.
So one of the brother has asked, can charity be made to grandchildren? So 1/3 he's talking about, can that be made to grandchildren while his own children are alive?
Yes. There's an Islamic inheritance calculator. If you just go online, type Islamic inheritance calculator, you can always put in who your beneficiaries are at a given point in time, and it will tell you whether someone is a beneficiary or not. In most circumstances, when children are alive, grandchildren are not beneficiaries. So in that circumstance, you can leave to them in the 1/3 section. The only thing I would recommend, or you'd need to be mindful of in that circumstances, is that if your children do pass away, then your grandchildren may become beneficiaries, and you should relook at it and then update your will accordingly.
Another question. Thank you, brother. So someone said I've purchased a burial spot in a cemetery. Where should I specify that?
Yeah, so that's the sort of information you can put in your My Wishes section, inshallah, in the questionnaire, and then we'll draft it into the will appropriately.
One more. This sister was asking, can we get a consultation to guide us how to distribute assets when we don't have children? Just married at the moment. So congratulations to the sister as well.
Exactly.
If it's just about determining who the beneficiaries are, I think the best thing to do is you could just use the Islamic inheritance calculator. It'll ask you, parents, who's alive, parents, spouse, brothers, sisters, etc. It'll ask you for all of that, and then it'll just tell you who the beneficiaries are. If there's other questions people have, our phone number's there. They're welcome to give us a call, inshallah. We can't do very long consults, but happy to provide guidance, inshallah.
And the beneficiary be the executor as well?
Yes, because the executor can be anybody, can be your son.
Yes, yes. I think Brother Ismail is very passionate about the executor, so I'm looking forward to hearing his guidance on that topic.
Beneficiary can be overseas as well.
Yeah, the beneficiary. All right.
Question is, how old is the minors? When do they get out of the minor?
18.
age?
Can a female be executor?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I addressed that misconception.
That's yeah.
Do you have a copy of the will that the brother showed in the website? Somewhere.
Adil, do you have a copy of your will on the website?
No, it's not on the website. We don't that's why we demonstrated on our live sessions, but
Because what do you think happens?
Yeah.
People just copy it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Any questions? Well, for Adil, I'll cover some of that things, and Adil can fit in as well. So if everyone can take note of the website on your phone or something, and also the code, inshallah.
NZF2.
NZF2.
Yeah.
For the discount code. If you put NZ, where does it come up when you pay, right?
Yeah, when you're paying, you just put the code in.
When you pay there's a discount code, you put NZF2 or 02 or 2.
Just number 2.
NZF2, and that will give you a discount.
We'll put that on to
Yeah.
Center.
Okay. All right, Rashad, can you put the slides up? Yes, brother. 220. He was sleeping.
Okay. I'm just gonna turn my camera off, but I'll be here. So inshallah, if there's
All right.
any more questions, happy to take them.
Am I wired up? One of these I'm going to get executed with all these wires around me, right? I better have my will rate done. Yeah, the PowerPoint, do I play it here or he's got it?
No, it's here. While it is being set up, what is executor passing away?
We'll talk about that in a minute. How do I first play? Yeah, but I first want to make sure that it's live. No, that's the wrong one actually. Display.
Minimizes go to PowerPoint.
How do I minimize it? How do I share that now? Share. It's not mine. Where is- It's blank. This is that. All right, ready to go? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So what I'm going to talk about, the importance of will as instructed in the Quran, and Ariel talked about that. I'm going to show you the actual ayah detailing this thing, because sometimes when we actually hear it, but we don't actually see it and read it, we don't actually appreciate that. We don't have to ask anybody. Everybody say, okay, how do we break up how do we determine what the shares are? And I'll show you the ayat, how precise the ayat is, right? And we talk about power of attorney, we talk about guardianship, inshallah. Who you should choose an executor, why and what is an enduring guardianship, why and what is a power of attorney, what happens if you try to execute the will with the banks, a car, you try to sell your car. I'll give you some live experience of what happens. Even if you have all of your paperwork done, what is a probate order? What should I add in my 1/3 distribution? Can I leave assets gifts for my inheritors? All right. So come up very quickly some of those things and just recap what I was talking about. When should you have this discussion? Firstly, so when are you going to have this discussion? You have to do your own one tonight. If you're a younger person, you have elderly parents, you have to have this discussion with them. So just the other night when we talked about having this session, one of the brothers went home and started talking to his mother about it, and all his siblings started fighting with him. Because they said, what are you trying to steal our inheritance? What are you trying to do? This subject, like weddings, creates a lot of fitna, right? So you have to have a time and sit down and explain to people why you need to have this discussion. I try to talk to people and explain to people about this, and then they say, no, we're not ready for this talk. My father is not ready for this talk. My mother's not ready for this talk. By the time you're ready, you're dead and it's too late. And then you have a bigger problem on your hands. And it's a huge problem. I'll give an example. I have all the paperwork I need to do. Every single piece of paperwork that I have for my dad's estate, and I still have trouble with the bank. Right? And one of the biggest problems you'll have when it comes to estate is the bank. And I'll explain to you why and what you need to do in reality when it comes to banks. All right. So basically, you should have this discussion with your parents. You should have discussion with your children. You should have the discussion with yourself. You should have discussion with your wife. It's very, very important. Should you bring up your parents' siblings? Of course you should, but you should make them explain, look, I'm not after anybody's money. So what happens is you can never imagine how children actually fight over inheritance. And everybody says, no ways will my children fight. I have the best children. My brothers and sisters, we have seen the best of families break up because of fighting inheritance. And sometimes there are things that are not clear, specifically when there's a house and the family has one son and 4 daughters, and they love the son so much, and the son is the one living in the house. And they all say, okay, he's living in the house, as an example. And then when the parents die, he doesn't want to get up. Right? And there's this big fight of all of these things because now the law, the inheritance, the will is not written properly. All right? And you can't enact the will if there's nothing to write there. So all of these things are very, very important. What else can you add to your will? Where would you like to be buried? Like, where would you like to be buried? And the brother said he's got Thames Creek, right? So you got to have or he's got to bought a plot. What's the plot number? That this is where he would like to be buried. And what happens is sometimes how much does it cost to bury somebody? 12,000. All right. How much does it cost to bury you at Narellan? Okay. How much does it cost to bury you at Rukud? About 11, 12, right? So now there's your executor, your eldest son. He doesn't want to spend a lot of money. He's going to spend an extra 4 grand because that's 4 grand less to be distributed, right? What's he going to do? He's going to bury it in Narellan. But if you don't have it there, look, I've already bought a plot at Kemps Creek. We haven't told them where would you like to be buried. It sounds simple, but this happens, brothers and sisters. These things happen. All right. Who should lead your janazah prayer? People don't actually realize, when you go to the Kemba Mosque and the masjids, when there's a janazah, the imam of the masjid has no right to lead your prayer. It's not his right to just get up and say, okay, guys, we're going to pray the janazah and lead the prayer. It's not his right. He needs to check with the family who has the deceased actually asked to lead his prayer. And if there's nobody, he didn't specify it, then it's fine. And one of the siblings or one of the family members can say, okay, Sheikh, you lead the prayer. But who's one of the best people to lead the prayer? One of your children, right? An example, my dad, he put in his will specifically, I want one of my sons to lead the prayer. If one of them is not available, I want one of my grandsons to lead the prayer. And if one of them is not available, I want Sheikh so-and-so to lead the prayer. And Allah has honored my dad where he was able, each one of us did, he got all 3 his wishes. Because it was such a big janazah, mashallah, I led the first prayer, then his grandson led the second prayer, and then the sheikh that he wanted to lead the prayer came in and he led the third prayer. But it was written as his wish, and Allah gave him his wish. Because you've written, you made plans for that. What does this also do for us? Prophet ﷺ said, go and visit the graves to remind you of death, right? So when you start doing this, it's like, man, what am I doing? I'm writing about when I'm not going to be here, I'm writing when I'm dead, because it reminds you. Now you start thinking, is my life correct? Okay, who's my executor? I have 5 boys, I have 5 daughters, or I have so many children. I don't trust any of them, right? You go, what type of life am I leading? So it forces you to start even contemplating and working out what is your life about. Before you die, you need to fix this before you die. And then grandchildren, where does the grandchildren come in? The grandchildren are not natural inheritors. So you can actually put your grandchildren in that 1/3, right? I know most of us love our grandchildren more than the children, right? We wish we could actually give the money to the grandchildren and not the children. And this is where it is ordained that no matter how much you dislike your children, khalas, there's nothing you can do. They will inherit from you, right? So some of the chapters that contain verses related to inheritance include Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, Allah says, this chapter covers various aspects of Islamic law and includes verses related to, for example, verse 188, 180 discuss the importance of writing a will and making provisions for the distribution of wealth. In Surah 180, Allah describes to the meaning, prescribed for you when death approaches one of you and he leaves, I can't see. Did I kill them? No. And it leaves some wealth is that he shall bequeath it actually to parents and near relatives. This is an obligation on those who fear Allah. This is clear instruction in the Quran. It's an obligation for you to bequeath and to write it. Then whoever changes it, the will after hearing it, the sin of it shall be on those who change it. Surely Allah is all hearing, all knowing. So anybody after you've written it, changes it, the sin is on them. But if you didn't write it, and they didn't distribute this properly, you'll be punished for that as well. Because your inheritance wasn't done according to what Allah has ordained. And I'll show you in a minute. To everyone, we have appointed heirs of what parents and kinsmen leave. And as for those with whom you have made a compact, give them their due. Allah is surely witness of all things. So this is about instructing you to do your will, right? You must write your will. Instruction, clear instruction. So you have to go tonight, write it up, tell somebody what you need to do. All right. Now, what are some, see, look, I want to show you how detailed this is. This is Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 11, the one that Ali referred to. Allah instructs you concerning your children. For the male, what is equal to the share of 2 females. But if there are only daughters, 2 or more, for them is 2/3 of one's estate. And if there's only one, for her is half. And for one's parents, to each one of them is 1/6 of his estate if he left children. But if he had no children and the parents alone inherit from him, then for his mother is 1/3. And if he had brothers or sisters, for his mother is a 1/6 after any bequest he made or did. Your parents or your children, you know not which of them are nearest to you in benefit. These shares are an obligation imposed by Allah. How many of you knew that your parents actually inherit from you? You up and down, your parents and your children. And you think, oh, you know, I don't want to give to my parents, they're okay, I'd rather give everything to my children. Allah says to you in the ayah, you do not know who is nearest to you in benefit. The ayah, I want to show you how detailed it is in calculation. So that's why at the back of the wasiyah will, it actually breaks it down there. If you have a wife, if you have a husband, if you have a mother, if you have a dad, if you have children, if you have a daughter, if you have 2 daughters, then if you have 2 sons and two daughters, all of that. It actually breaks it down and it gives the percentages based on the ayah. So there's nothing you can do. You can't decide any different. You can't decide, I'm going to give my son twice as much as my daughter. 3 times as much as my daughter. You can't decide to give your daughters equal to their sons because you love them the same and you feel this is unjust. I've heard somebody say this. We live in Australia and it's unjust to give the daughters half. There are some cultures, right? And I've spoken to people about this, they've explained, where they make the daughters feel culturally that their inheritance should be handed over to the brothers. So let's say there's 3 daughters and 3 sons. The parents die. It is culturally the girls are forced to give up their inheritance to their brothers. Because the way it works is that the girls have husbands to take care of them. The boys need to take care of everybody. This is against Allah's law. You can't coerce anybody to give up their inheritance. You can't. You're not allowed to say to the sister, okay, you've got a rich husband, give up your component to it. From the ayat. Then answer this, the next verse. And for you is half of what your wives leave, which means if your wife dies, half of her wealth is yours. If they have no children. But if they have a child, for you is 1/4 of what they leave. Right? After any bequest. So this part here is very clear. You see the previous ayah also mentioned after they bequest or made a debt. So which means when you die, all your money, whatever bequest you've made, whatever in your 1/3, then any debts you have is paid and then it's divided. I went to a janazah one time. It was the first time I see this, and I haven't seen it again. The brother stood at the janazah and he said, if there's anybody here that my dad owed money to, come and see me. He said, come and see me. Right? Which meant that he needed to first pay the debt off. And for the wives is 1/4 if you leave no child. But if you leave a child, then for them is 1/8 of what you leave after any bequest you may have made or did. And if a man or woman leaves neither ascendants nor descendants, means there's no parents and no children, but has a brother or a sister, for each one of them is a 1/6. But if there are more than 2, their share is 1/3 after any bequest which is made or a debt, as long as there are no detriment caused. This is an ordinance from Allah, and Allah is knowing and more forgiving. So obviously this is a mathematical thing that you go like, it's very hard to work out. The point I'm trying to show you here is how detailed this is. How detailed this is. Right? So the calculation and distribution is in the Quran. And that's how they distributed at the end of the world. That's what Adil was saying. There's no need to say, I want to distribute this according to an Islamic world, and I've got this many kids and I've got this many things. Because this is basically calculated at the time you die. Whatever you had, whatever kids you have, it just gets distributed according to this particular thing. All right? Any questions? Yes.
Probably not relevant to that. Should I ask the question later?
Yes, sure. What is?
That are coming in. Can you specify assets instead of share for beneficiaries?
No. No. Okay, so an example is, the question is, can you specify assets? Like, can I say, okay, this house is for this one, this house is for that one, this is, no, you can't do that. As a matter of fact, you can't do the following. Like, you know how some grandmothers or the mother says, look, if I die, this ring is for this daughter and this bangle is for that daughter. You can't do that. Because as soon as you die, everything you own goes into your estate. You have to give this stuff while you're alive. So if you want to give your granddaughter or your daughter something specifically for them, then you give it while you're alive. Now, people might say, okay, I'll sell all my stuff and I'll hand it out evenly to my daughters and sons, because it's not my inheritance now. It is, I'm actually handing it out fair and square for that. What you're saying is basically, I'm going against what Allah has ordained. Secondly, if you decide, look, my 4 sons are not obedient to me, they don't listen to me, but this one son is a good son, so I'm going to give him all my stuff before I die. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked for the Prophet ﷺ to witness that he's giving his son a particular gift. And the Prophet ﷺ was just about to witness and he asked him, do you have other children? He said, yes, I do. He said, are you giving them the same thing? He said, no. He says, well, then I can't be a witness to that. Because you're not allowed to give one child something without valid reason, without giving the others the same. All right. So it becomes very, very important, equity and justice. It's not for you to actually memorize this, but to know. The instruction is in the Quran. And it says you are obligated to do it. You don't have a choice. You can't say, I love my daughter more than my son, and I will give her more than my son. Now, this is a very common thing. What's the most common thing that non-Muslims or people who don't understand say about Islamic wills? What is the most common thing they say? Okay, because half, right? So do we have instance, okay, for the people who weren't hearing, they say that it's unfair because the females get less than the men. So is there a scenario in Islamic wills where the women get more than the men? Yes, there is. Of course there is. One such scenario occurs when a deceased person leaves behind only daughters of their heirs with no male children or descendants. In this case, the daughters collectively receive 2/3 of the estate, while the remaining 1/3 will be allocated to other relatives beneficiaries according to rules of inheritance, which could be his brother, his father. The girls get more. This is Allah's law. This is equitable, right? So it's not for you to remember. Allah instructs you concerning your children. For the male, what is equal to the 2 share of two females. But if there are only 2 daughters, if there are only daughters, 2 or more, for them is 2/3 of one's estate. And if there's only 1, for her is half. Gets distributed to the rest of theirs.
So what about if there is 2 sons, but there is no daughter? So then they get the full.
Yeah, they get half and half.
Yeah.
And you've got no parents, you've got no wife.
Not like the daughters get 2/3.
Yeah.
Yeah. To the other relatives.
So, all right. Okay, now Ariel is waiting for me to talk about this. Who should you choose the executor? Who in this room here has a will? Who has a will? Okay, so there's only 2 hands up. There's only 2 hands up. This is a serious matter. Or for those whose hands is up, who's your executor?
One in this room.
Pardon? Somebody in this room, right? Who's your executor?
Brother.
Your brother is your executor. Why did you choose your brother?
Because I find he is very honest.
The honest man? You think he's honest man? Okay. He chose his brother. Who else can tell us who's the executor? The wife? So generally speaking, what people do, the first executor will be their wife and vice versa. And then after that, they'll take one of their children. And most parents choose their eldest child to be the executor. Is that a good or a bad thing?
I think also it's a bad thing.
Pardon?
Because he's part of the beneficiary.
He's part of the beneficiary. Who thinks it's a good thing?
He thinks it's because he's the elder.
All right. Who thinks it's a bad thing? Because you need to understand what the role of the executor is. To say, okay, who do I choose to do this? The executor has full control of everything of yours. He's like you. He's like replacing you in relation to your wealth and everything you have. All right. So now you need to decide, who is that person that I trust that can do what I wanted to do? So let's say you have 5 boys or 5 children. Most people give it to their eldest child because they feel the eldest child is just the right person to do it, right? And they talked about, should the executive be overseas? No, it's not good for the executive to be overseas or not in the same state you are in. As an example, my brother from Perth, which is the eldest son, was the executive of my dad's will, right? And then when I learned about this, I had a chat to my dad and I explained to him that we need to change that because it becomes impractical, right? So when we were trying to, just selling his car, just going to the bank, everything, only the executive can go. So if my brother's in Perth, nothing can happen. They only want to speak to the executive. They need to see ID and approve. So my dad changed it to me because I actually am here. But the advice I want to give my brothers and sisters is, when you choose the executor, whether it's your brother, whether it's your dad, whether it's your children, choose the person that will do what you would have done. Not what's convenient for them or practical for them, but what you would have done. An example. Let's say there's an execution of your will and something is not exactly the way it was meant to go, right? Or then you say, okay, what would dad have done in this situation? Not what is the easiest thing to do, which is going to give us the most money, and which is the most convenient, but what would dad or mom would have done if they were there? That's the child you need to choose as your executor. Example, let's say there's a dispute about, or the dad said, give some of the money, this is in the 1/3, right? Where you said, I'm going to leave some money to Baraqa Center, right? And it just says there, give some money to Baraqa Center. It doesn't say how much, as an example. This is the way it's written. Now the executive will come, says, oh, give him $100, right? But the child would say, what did dad mean about this, or what dad would have done with this, is the one you want. And they also say, when you write in your will these things, you need to be very specific about what you write. Don't leave it open for challenge. Like if you say, okay, give some money to Baraqa, that's very, very vague and open, right? Like I said, $100. Rather say, give a percentage or give a certain specific amount. All right. One more piece of advice. So we're alive today and we think, okay, we'll give some money, leave some money to Baraqa Center as an example, or you leave money to NZF. So this is what the brother came. He said to me, I would like to leave some money for NZF, but I only want to leave it while you're in charge. I said, you cannot write that because I don't know how long I'm going to be there. So this is a very good example. And I have a personal experience with this as well, not in NZF. So let's say you write your will today and you love a particular center. We won't use Baraqa Center as an example. You love this particular center so much, you say, okay, I'm going to leave 10% of my estate to this particular center. All right. But you need to put a condition, because let's say 20 years from now, the center is not the center anymore that you thought it was, or when you were there. The people that's running the center now are different people. You with me? Center can disappear. So this is where the executive will come in and say, okay, what would dad have done? Dad meant to give some money to a good masjid. So now I will find a masjid that I know would resonate with what dad would have wanted and give the money there. But at the same time, also, you can put a condition. You can say, I will donate, I will leave a percentage of my money to this particular organization for as long as this organization is with the following ethos and they stay as they were at such and such a time. So you get very specific about it, because you could have an organization that you love today very much, whether it's a charity, whatever, you love the work they do. Then your will is going, you die, you forget about it, 5-10 years, they don't do the same things you do anymore. You're not happy with them anymore, so to speak, right? So that's very, very important, how you write those things. So you can say, I am writing this, I'm leaving such and such 2% for this organization, under the condition that this organization is following the Sunni faith of Islam, and it is whatever. You can write that specific things there. So it's very, very clear that, and I'm saying these things because some of the masjids sometimes gets taken over by different groups. All right. So your executive is the most important thing. I spoke to another brother and I said he's got 6 children, 6 or 7. He's got a house that he owns. I said, who's your executor? He said, my accountant. I said, why is your accountant the executor? Oh, he knows about finance. No. He doesn't have to know about finance. He's the person that you need to trust with your life. The executor is the person you need to trust with your life. Because as executor, I said that accountant will sell all of your property out of all of your children. And in the world also, another example, same person mentioned there that he is saving some money for one of his children, right? So one of his children has trouble saving, so he's giving his dad some money every month to save for him. I said, have you got that written down somewhere? No. What do you think happens now? He dies, the money is in his account, right? They'll say he saved 5,000, 10,000 for the son. Nothing's written anyway. So when he dies, all this money becomes part of his inheritance. This son can't claim this money now. The other kids are going to go, no, what are you talking about? We don't know anything about that. So either it's written down or everybody knows about it. And in the will, it states that this percentage of money belongs to this one. Even in the will was written that one of the sons had borrowed some money from him. And the amount was written there. The son had borrowed XX dollars from the dad, which he still owes the dad. What do you think happens? I said, has he paid you some? Yeah, he's paid half of it off already. So what do you think happens when this dad died? No, you still owe 20 because it's written in a bad way. And this is the accountant who wrote it. So you need to be very careful when you write these things. What would you write? You would have to say that such and such a son has borrowed money and the balance of this can be found here. You with me? Okay. Why and what is an enduring guardianship? Why are we not in a power of attorney? So what is an endurance of guardianship and power of attorney? Who can tell me? It's 2 documents. I'll show you in a minute. All right. What happens when you try to execute the will, banks the cards? What is a probate order? What shall I do in my? So the probate order is when you die and your will needs to be executed and your will is worth certain above $50,000. You need to get a probate order from the court for the executor to execute that will. So if you have a house, if you're all of this, if it's a lot of money, the executor can't just execute the will. They need a court order to give them permission to execute the will. You with me? So in Australia, where most of people own a house in a joint name, right? Okay, what's the problem with this? When you own a house in a joint name, you got to understand, some people say it's in a joint name because, my wife, she's taking care of the kids, she's all of this. So it's just in a joint name, but she doesn't own actually part of it, right? How many of you have that scenario? So you have to be very clear, either she owns 50% of it or she doesn't. Because if it's only there because she was doing the house and stuff, but it actually belongs to you, then she gets nothing from it, Islamically. So what's the problem in Australian non-Islamic law? If you die and the house is in 50-50's name, right? Everything moves to her name, right? Everything becomes hers, okay? Now, if she stays in the house and she dies and then everything goes to the kids, right? To the inheritors. What's the problem with the first part of that scenario? You die, she's by herself, you got kids, and the full ownership of the house goes to her. What's the problem with that?
Just against the Quran, kids get nothing.
No. So for instance, what happens is, so the kids get nothing at that point, right? It hasn't gone against the Quran yet.
She got married.
Yep. So the problem is, basically, once you die, half of that is already belongs to somebody else now. It's inheritors, including 1/6 is hers, right? So the 50% is hers, plus of the 1/6, depending on that, is also hers, right? And the other half of the asta belongs to the kids, whatever. Now, because mom is still alive, people tend not to execute that. So it's fine, except when she remarries or he remarries. Because now the whole thing changes. That means that 50% cannot be part of her new or his new wealth, because half of that doesn't belong to it, right? So that's very important to know, and write it in your will as well, if you can. So what should I add in my 1/3 of distribution? So this you can put for the grandkids. You can put stuff in here for the grandkids. You can put in there for the charities. You can put there for the mosques. These are the sort of things you put in the 1/3 of your wasiyah, right? It's maximum 1/3. Allah stopped you from giving all your money to the dog and the cat. People leave their money to animals, right? So in Islam, you can't do that. You can only leave a maximum of 1/3 to your cat.
Have to have that 1/3 given to others?
No. It's a recommendation. It's a part there. That's the wasiyah. That's called wasiyah, that part. It's giving you a chance to give some sadaqah, do some good, get some sadaqah jariyah from there. But that's why Allah restricts it to 1/3, so you don't deprive your relatives of their inheritance. All right. So can I leave assets and gifts for my inheritors? So you can't include your inheritors in there. So those already inheriting from you, you can't add anything in there. So like you have a son, you can say, okay, he's already got some, but I'll give him some extra year. You can't leave assets and gifts to your inheritors there. So nothing in this part can you leave for your inheritors, for those that automatically inherits from you. So how do you can remember who automatically inherits from you? It's up and down. Your parents and your children, right? So those are the ones that's closest to you that always inherits if you have those, all right? When should you have this discussion? When should you bring it up? So when do you think you should have this discussion? And when should you bring it up?
Then when talk to them, then.
But explain to them the wisdom behind why you're having this discussion, right? You don't just turn up and say, hey, let's talk about all the money I'm going to get when you die, right? You don't just turn up your dad and say, hey, Dad, let's talk about all that money that you get. You talk about why importance of the will. You've attended a will seminar. They talk the importance of the will. You know, have you done your will, Dad? Have you done your will, Mom? So you have that discussion. So you even talk to your siblings, right? And if you want to know how you want to have you think you had some fights with your siblings? Wait till this comes. Wait till this comes. You will see some serious fights about this, right? Where would you like to, we talked about that?
A question on that.
Sure. Which one?
The wife is asking,
Uh,
can she write in the will whether her husband can give her ghusl?
can she write in the will where the husband can lead a ghusl, to do a ghusl?
For her ghusl, if she can't.
I don't know. I don't know. That's a thick question. Pardon?
She can write anything legal,
Yeah, that's a thick question.
and it's allowed.
It's allowed, yeah. So she can. I think she can. We'll check it. We'll take it on notice, yeah.
So another question is, what if the Muslim parent has put the will, but did the distribution incorrectly? In a way, there's 3 children, 1 son, 2 daughters, but they have distributed it 1/3 each.
So
What is the obligation now to the kids to rectify this?
okay, so this is where Islamic knowledge comes in and the executive becomes important, right? So now if the kids are well educated, they're good kids, they've been taught the Islam, the knowledge, they'll say, no, we will go according to what Allah has ordained.
If
Right.
they forgive it,
Pardon?
if they forgive it,
If they
it's
forgive,
okay, it's okay.
If they
Accept it.
no, they're not allowed to.
So recently, one of my friends, he has 1 daughter and 1 son,
Uh-huh.
and he asks his son
So my daughter is not that well off, so I want to the most of my asset to my daughter. Will you mind to object me? He said no.
While he's alive,
Yeah.
while he's alive. He wrote that in his will.
Yeah.
He wrote it in his will.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, you went against what Allah has just ordered you to do.
You cannot do that.
You just gone against what Allah has ordered you to do.
But he said he talked to some sheikh, he does this thing, and my son.
You
has
cannot-
no objection,
Doesn't matter.
giving most of the-
No objection, whatever. You can do what you want when you're alive, which means if he executes it while he's alive, he has to sell. Let's say he said he's got a house, and he said, I want to give equal to my son and daughter. But he can't say, I want to have equal to my son and daughter when I'm dead. After that, he needs to sell it now and give it equal to them while he's alive. So he's giving them a gift equal to that. But he can't say, if I die, son, I need you to give your sister half. Allah's already determined what she gets. Even if he agrees. Even if he agrees. But he can afterwards, as an example, let's say he gets 100,000, she gets 50,000. If he wants to give her 25,000 of his 100,000 as a gift, khalas, it's up to him. It's up to him.
That's wrong.
What if, like, one does the will properly, but after he's dead, all the brothers and sisters discusses and say.
The ayah says there. The ayah was there.
No, he did.
Yeah, the ayah says, and any of those who change it after, the sin is on them. So what does it imply? If you didn't do it properly the first time, the sin is on you. Right? Because Allah says, if you've done it properly, those who come after change it, the sin is on them. So the reverse of that is, you better do it properly, because if you didn't do it properly, the sin is on you.
Brothers coming from this side, for example, easy sum, $1 million, which way.
Easy sum, huh? Very little, no, not much, just a million, just a million, just a couple of.
Say there's 4 children. And they got their share equally as the
Quran
United
said,
States.
yeah.
But then the brother that's received a certain amount says, okay, it's all accordingly. And then a week later, he's decided he's going to give the sister the majority of his amount because he's.
That's a lot.
Wasn't that where you're coming from?
That's not
No, no,
really.
no.
My thing is, okay, then left it like that, but you know, Kalas, we.
The executive does what he wants, he's changing it. Let's say the father's put it up, the executive decides, no, he's going to give everybody equal now. That's what it is. What you're saying is like, if the son says, look, the brother feels like, look, he's well off, the sister's struggling, he can give it to her as a gift from his part. But yeah, he can give it to her. It's basically a gift he's giving her. But he can't say, I'll give you part of my share. Right? He needs to take his share and then hand it to her. Right?
Not inheritance, but
Yeah.
In my lifetime, if I give all of my work to one per child.
Yeah.
In my lifetime. And
If you have only one child,
No, 5 or 6.
okay, then that's Prophet ﷺ asked you, why did you give it to that child? Have you done it fairly to the others?
Okay,
You see?
can I do in my lifetime?
But this is sin in itself.
That's the same.
This is unfair in itself. But because now what you're doing is basically trying to avoid what's going to happen here.
That's why I asked my angels down that. He had one
Daughter,
one girl.
yeah.
So he asked his son, I want to give my daughter more. Will you mind for me?
He's not allowed to.
He can do it now, he can give.
He can give it while he's alive.
Yes, he
Yeah.
can give, but he has to register all the work or he can make it, give it to him just.
Pardon?
He need to hand over all the things.
Yeah, he has to give it to you. You have to give it to them right now.
In that case.
You can't say when I'm dead, you take this.
No, no.
Yeah.
If you say all of the work I'm giving my daughter,
Yeah. He has to give it to her then.
can do that
He has to give it to her straight away. Yeah.
without giving the oil.
No, then the Prophet ﷺ asked, how many children do you have? Have you given the others the same?
No.
See, so already you're going against what's ordered for you to do.
You can't do it because it is against Allah's way. That's what Rasul can confirm. Even if you're alive, don't play with Allah's way. That's what it is.
Yeah. All right. So quickly, the power of attorney is a document that you have that gives you authority over somebody. So like if I give my son power of attorney, I'm saying to anybody that he can do whatever I can do while I'm alive. While I'm alive.
Like $1, if I give all my assets when I'm alive,
Yep.
I do that. Because when I'm distributing,
Yep.
$1, I'm just giving everything to have when I'm alive.
Do you have parents?
Like, yes.
Yeah, so again, you're going against you're going against what you're trying to avoid this when you try to do those things, right? So you have to ask yourself, what's the intention why I'm doing that? Am I trying to avoid what Allah has already ordained for me to happen? Right? Or am I got nobody else, I'll just give it to her to make sure she's fine. It depends on what your intention and what your structure is. So you need to go, each individual situation is different, all right? So let's just go to this. Yes, sir.
All right, there's a question from the sister.
It's
more about the ornaments.
Okay.
So trying to explain the situation. So, they have certain ornaments that they want to give to the elder son, younger son, and so on and so forth.
They have to give it while they're alive.
Okay.
Once they die, that all of that becomes part of their estate.
Right.
It has to be then distributed accordingly. So anything you own, as soon as you die, becomes part of your estate. You can't say, I'm going to give this watch to my eldest son when I die. You have to take it off and give it to him now.
If they're minors, so they are not, let's say for my example.
Yep.
I've got two boys.
Yep.
They are minors.
Yep.
I can't really give it to them, but that's my wish.
Just leave it till the inheritance.
But how do I know that the one that I want to give to the elder is going to give to the elder?
Because the inheritance is divided, right? So let's say you want to give him, what do you want to give him?
Say the similar sort of style,
Yeah,
but one is, I don't know, ruby and another is gold or whatever.
yeah.
So the distribution is equal this way. That's what they want to do.
So
Choice.
if you look at the logic of all of this is to be just and fair to all your children, right? So anytime you're trying to do something that goes against the just and fairness of all of that, you're playing with the rules. So each case is different. So it's hard to just explain it that these are some of the things where they have to also go to a sheikh and say, okay, this is my situation. Am I allowed to do this? In this type of class where we're talking now, it's very hard to just say yes or no to some of the stuff. All right. So yes, brother.
What has assets separate?
Yeah.
Does it have to be the same sort of Islamic rule?
Yeah, she has to have her own will. Exactly the same. She has to have her own will. And some people might say, one sister might say, I don't own anything. Yes, she does. She has clothes, she has jewelry, all of that. It's part of the estate. All right, power of attorney, the definition of power of attorney is legal document that authorizes one person to act on behalf of another person in legal, financial, personal matters. What is the example of that? Because you can only use this while the person is still alive. It's just like, let's for argument's sake, say you live overseas and you want somebody to do some business or financial transactions for you, you give them power of attorney. Yeah. All right. But there's also what they call enduring power of attorney. So each state has different rules for this. So enduring power of attorney means you then get still those power once the person passes away, depending on the state you're in. New South Wales, Queensland have different rules for this. All right. But it's important documents to have. As an example, if I wanted to do something for in my dad's bank account, whatever, I need to show them I've got the will and I have power of attorney to do this. Right?
Let's say if I give enduring power of attorney to him.
Yeah.
And I'm giving executive
Yep.
to him.
Yep.
And if I passed away, then who will be next?
Yes. This is only while you're still alive.
No, I'm giving the enduring power.
Yeah. So this depending on the rules. Depending on the rules in the state that it is. But the will, the executive overrides most of this stuff. All right. And even in okay.
Can the power of attorney be given to someone who is living overseas?
Yes, because what happens is like depending on what you're trying to do. So let's say you've got some property in Lebanon or wherever, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and you give them power of attorney to act on your behalf in that country. That's basically what it means. Then there's a thing called enduring guardianship or enduring power of attorney is to do with medical treatment. So let's say you get sick in the hospital, you become incapacitated, or you can't answer, then your enduring power of attorney or enduring guardian can act on your behalf. Like let's say they need to do operation, they need to turn off this or whatever. That's the person that can make that decision. So these are three separate documents: the will, power of attorney, and enduring guardianship. Three separate documents. The enduring guardianship is to do with medical. The enduring power of attorney is to do with financial and other legal matters, and your will is when you die.
But still, you don't need to have enduring power of attorney.
It depends on when you. So let's say an example: your father passes away, you have enduring power of attorney over your mom, so you can now act on all the things that needs to be done. Instead of taking your mom everywhere with you, you can do it.
Yeah, but some of you don't need to have it. That is my question.
No, Islamically, you don't need to have it, but in Australia, you need to do this. I'll give you an example. Now, my brothers and sisters, if your father or your mother dies and they have a bank account, even a joint bank account, don't be brave and turn up at the bank and inform them the first day. Because the first thing they do is they freeze everything. And you can't get to any of it if you don't have a will. If you don't have in the will, who's the executor? As a matter of fact, I was in the bank the other day, and I'm trying to get to my dad's safety deposit box, right? So she read through the will and says there, you don't have any rights according over your dad's assets. Even though I'm the executor, it says, it doesn't specifically state, it says I can't give it to you. They promised me that if I told, so it took me 2 years to go and tell them. But what we did was we first made sure we moved all the stuff out, and then we went to tell them. Because what they did was, I said to them, the reason I'm doing this is because I know you're going to freeze all of this. No, sir, no. What do you think happened? I wasn't even at the door and they froze everything. So now I have to come back, prove this, and this. So there's some of the practical things that happens to you. When I went to take my dad's car to transfer the name, even the RMS said, show me the will. And I had to show there that I am the executor and have the authority to sell this car. So now if the person is overseas or interstate, look at the impracticalities of all of that. So it's not about who you love the most, whatever, it's what happens when it's practically needs to be executed. So it's always easy for the person to be in the same place you are, has the same understanding you are, and will behave as if they were you. And execute as they were you. That's the best executor you can have, right? So you know who that person is. You know which child of yours. Most of us who have elderly children, older children, will know which of our children will actually be able to do that. So if you have young kids, it's different, right?
But can you have two executives?
You can have two executives. So you can have, so what they do is in the world, they normally say the first one, and if this one is passed away or they're not there, then the next one, and you have three at least. So there's the order of three. I mean, it's very unlikely that all three will be gone. And you can have two. Like as an example, jointly. So I have two jointly, actually. I've got my two eldest sons as an example. So my two sons. So the lawyer said, discouraged me from doing that. I said, no, I felt it was fine because what they will do is they have two different personalities and they will bounce off each other different things, and they will make sure that they all agree to the stuff, right? So the best thing you can do for your children, is make them God conscious. Make them fear Allah. That's the best thing you can do for your children.
Can executor appoint a different person? Like, let's say it's someone who you guys did, but you can't perform that role.
I don't know if Adil can answer that. I don't know the answer to that. Adil, the brother's asking, can an executor appoint another person as the executor? Because let's say the executor feels like he's not capable now, right? So let's say he has some trauma in his life, or he's feeling unwell, or he feels like I can't do this. Can he then pass it on? I think it automatically goes to the next executor in the will.
Yeah. So in the wills that we prepare, we ask people to write primary executor and someone in the alternative for that very reason. If the person they initially nominated is unable or unwilling to act, then the alternative person would kick in. I don't think the executor can just appoint somebody else and say, I give you authority to be the executor. They would need to be given that authority through, like, from a court or something.
Once again,
If it's not the people you've mentioned in your will.
important to choose the executor, right? So for those who are going for Hajj, especially for those who don't have their will, it's an important thing to write it out, get it sorted, right? Because there's no guarantee you're coming back.
You mentioned something. Or forget something.
Uh-huh.
Say you write something in the will. How do you differentiate? So I don't take 50%.
So the question is, if you've got joint ownership of the house and you die, that means 50% of the house, or the 100% goes to the owner. So I'm not sure, Adil, you can tell us whether you can write in the will that the property is owned jointly, and in my demise, that even though legally 100% of this belongs to my wife, 50% actually belongs to my inheritance.
Yeah, so on that one, if you go onto our website, we actually have a outstanding question that we've posed to the Australian Fatwa Council to provide us some sort of, I guess, a fatwa on this issue, because there is this tension between the Australian sort of the rule of survivorship in Australia and how an asset should be, the conservative view in terms of how a jointly owned asset should be distributed Islamically. So the advice that we've received from some mashayikh, including Sheikh Bilal Ismail, is that the property, even though under the Australian legal system, it moves directly to the surviving tenant, it should still be inherited from. But we've posed this question specifically to the Australian Fatwa Council, asking them to consider it and give us a view, understanding the Australian sort of context and everything. We asked this question in 2021. We're still waiting for a response.
So in the meantime,
of course, but yeah, in the meantime, you can, if you want to write something around that in your My Wishes section, just put the information there and we can help you to draft it into your.
in the meantime, once again, the inheritors needs to know, and the wife needs to know, that's the rule. Once again, it comes to everybody fearing Allah and knowing that.
That it is joint tenancy or common tenancy.
Yeah.
There are two ways you can do it.
Yeah.
If you do it joint tenancy, then the next person will get the
100%. Yeah,
100%. But if you do
common tenancy, yeah,
then they will not get 100%.
Yeah.
They will get their.
but most of the
share, but
most
you can give it, you share to you.
yeah most of the mortgages are done in joint tenancy.
Yeah, but you can instruct, do it common.
Yeah,
tenancy.
if you have to redo it, it costs a lot of money. So that's that's why when people actually buy houses together and they know the Islamic rules, like the zakah, again, you need to know the rules, then you would buy it in common tenancy. Oh yeah. The brother's asking, can all of this be challenged in court? Yes, anything can be challenged in court. So let's say you put your will out and it's all of that, and Wasiya has written down that daughters get so much and sons get so much. One of the daughters goes to court and challenges it. Yep, can all be challenged.
Yeah, can I answer that in a bit more detail?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So the thing about in Australia is that we're given freedom to write our will however we want, right? So that's why you hear even of people who leave their full estate to their pet cat, for example. And you're allowed to do that legally. The question is, will someone challenge it, right? And then how will a judge sort of decide? So take the scenario where someone says, I want to leave, my estate 50-50 to my son and my daughter. Intuitively, for all of us, we think that, yes, that is, that seems fair and equitable and everything, it's 50-50, so that's how it should be. What if the son decides to challenge the will, saying, well, my father had dementia, you didn't look after him, I had to look after him, etc. So I deserve more. He could go to a court and try and get the court to actually give him more than 50%, which a judge will have to decide at that point in time whether that's fair and equitable. So even the scenario which we think on its face looks fair is challengeable as well. The Islamic inheritance and the Islamic distribution, I'm only aware of it going before a court in Canberra on one occasion. And in that instance, the judge actually refused to rule on whether the distribution was acceptable or not, because the person who made the will was found to have already lost their mind. So they weren't of sound mind. So we don't have any precedent in Australia, but I think the take-home message is whatever you write is challengeable. It'll depend on the circumstances that are being considered at a point in time in terms of the answer that the court derives.
The
I hope
reverse of
that's
that
clear.
as well, if you don't do anything, you basically leave everything to be challenged and you lose most of it. So even though you write something, you know that it's good. Once again, if the kids challenge it and they come back to the part where they change it. So they challenging it, meaning that they're now changing from what you've written. It's a sin on them. All right, brothers and sisters, I think it's been a long night. Have you learned anything tonight about? So make sure you go home tonight and is any questions from the sisters? They have a mic. All right. Sisters, do you want to use the mic? Just say no questions so we know you're actually listening. You're still awake. They're not awake. Maybe the mic's not working.
There's a question I think you answered.
What's that?
How do you quantify the assets in the share? Won't the family fight over who gets what, as their share is fixed?
There is no question.
Will the family fight?
Basically, if you don't specify this and that,
Yeah.
you just put the percentage. Wouldn't they fight?
No, it's specified. In the world that Wasiya does, it's specified. At the end, it just says that the children and the assets are not specified.
Yeah.
So by the end, you might have 4 children. You might have 2 children now when you write it. But by the time you die, you've got 4 children. And you might have $1 million now. And then when you die, you've got 5 million. So basically saying that once you die, this is what counts. 4 kids, 5 million, and it will get distributed according to the Quranic ayah of half for the son, 2 for the daughters, etc. That's how it will do.
But I think the question the brother is asking, he's got a palace, 3 houses, 5 horses, he's got 2 sons, one
Yeah.
daughter. Everyone wants the palace. That's what he's saying. If you don't specify, then they will fight over.
So basically, the asset, the inheritance goes in such a way that it's got to be divided evenly. So basically, they can then decide to make this even. We sell everything and divide the money, or we value the palace. Right? The palace is worth 4 million. All right. That means that son who wants that palace is only supposed to get 2 million. He needs to pay the others the extra 2 million to pay their share out. That's what it's supposed to work. And this is very, very, very common, where in the family, one of the children is happy to buy the house, right? They'll value the house, and then they'll say, okay, this is, if we sold the house today, this is how each one would have got, right? Then they hand it out so virtually, and then they hand the house to the child who wants the house, and that child pays out the others. And what happens normally, people say, the one that takes the house and says, I'll pay you guys later, right? So what happens is they get in the house, they can't afford it, and nobody gets paid out, and then the house gets transferred to the child, and then everybody else loses out. All right. And also when the parents are not very clear of who the house belongs to, etc., etc., this is very, very common as well.
Can whoever the parent or making will discuss among the children?
They have to. It's important that you sit down and talk about, besides what is inherited for them, right? You can talk about other things that you want to do, but let them understand how these things work. Give your children Islamic knowledge. I mean, we're sitting here, the children needs to have the same knowledge. So when you do the will, you sit down and say, guys, this is what we've done. This is what it is. You go, why this, why that? You explain to them, you show them the ayah. This is Allah's law. So you're educating them as well about why the will is written like that. And then you threaten them as well. You say to them, if any of you fight over this, this is what Allah said about you. All right. And I take no responsibility for any of you fighting over this. You want to fight of something you're not happy now? Speak up now.
How can you find these lectures you have?
Pardon?
How can you have the hard copy?
Hard copy?
Or
It's on Facebook. It's
On our Facebook, there was live and it is recorded.
It's on NZF Facebook and on Sunnah Facebook. So it's on 3 Facebooks tonight. So you can watch it all three parts, and you can learn more from this one, and you learn a little bit from this one, and you learn a little bit. He doesn't use Facebook, so when
If the parents were not educated in there and they passed away, and the kids decided without knowing that it will be everything equal. Now they decided, and then maybe the knowledge has come forward, but one of them has passed away.
you try to rectify things, like let's say your parents didn't know, and you have better knowledge, because you care for your parents, right? People say, I want to make Umrah for my dad, I want to do this. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Rectify whatever wasn't able to be done. So that's why the best thing, one of the best things you can leave behind are good children. And how do you get good children? Is to teach them Islam. Jazakallah khairan wa akhiru da'wahum anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. I don't know what's for the snacks. There's some food. So, are we finished on Facebook? I'm going to see you in Kuala Lumpur.
That's too high.
I don't know what's for the snacks. There's some food. So, are we finished on Facebook? I'm going to see you in Kuala Lumpur.
That's too high.